Welcome to Sage Leaf Group Tutorials. This is Kevin Taylor here. This channel is where we explore and teach basic techniques and skills in Revit. In the last tutorial, I briefly discussed how to make a detail component. This one I'm going to go into a bit more depth and talk about line-based detail components as well. So before I jump into that, I want to show you how to make multiple sizes or multiple kinds of detail components. So this works just like any other family. And this is the 2x4 that I showed you in the last tutorial. But let's say, for instance, you want to have a 2x4, 2x6, and a 2x8 cut section as well. And it would be wise to include that into these names. So I'll go and put that in real quick. Okay, so now that these are all sections, so we're going to go to the 2x4 because that's what this is. Then I'm going to, before I go in and edit that, I'm going to go to Create and then Reference Plane. So reference planes are pretty neat. It's one of the unique things about Revit and family parameters. So with this dimension, I'm going to make sure it's tied to this reference plane, and this other side is going to be tied to this reference plane. You do that by grabbing these little three dots, hover over it until you see the reference plane, highlight, and then you can deselect. And now this dimension is dimensioning these reference planes. So now let's go into the filled region that we created. We're going to edit those boundaries, and when you draw it, or if it's already drawn, you could come, and as I slide it and bring it and drop it, so I click, move it to the left, move it to the right until it highlights, till the reference plane highlights. I'll deselect, and then you've got the little lock option, so you can lock it there. I'm going to do the same thing to this other side. What this is doing is it's locking this side of the 2x4, or of the masking region, to this reference plane, and this side of the masking region to this reference plane. Let's select OK. Now with these lines as well, I'm going to make sure I do the same thing. We want to make sure that those are locked in. And then up here, with this dimension, we're going to create a new parameter. We're going to call this size. Oops, caps lock is on. And we're going to have this be an instant parameter. Or, I'm sorry, a type parameter. Instances mean that each individual one, you can vary it. Like each time you put this detail component in, you can vary it, versus each time you use a 2x6, it'll stay the same. Okay, the first thing we want to do is test this out. They call it flexing. So we're going to put a 5.5 in there. Okay, so it moved those lines over, but it didn't move this over. Let's go back in and edit this, bring it over to the reference plane. Let's try locking it. Dimensions would be over constrained. Let's say OK. Let's try flexing this again. Take that down to a 3. I'm going to unlock these top pieces, move that into there, and then try this again. Sometimes it takes a little bit of fiddling to get it figured out. Change that to a 5. There we go. Now it's working the way we want it to. Change this to a 7 to make sure. Okay, perfect. So now what we can do is we can come in here to the family types. So with the 2x4, I'll change this to 3.5. I'll click Apply. 2x6, I'll change this to 5.5. Click Apply. See how it changes in the background? I'm going to switch between the two. Apply. 2x6. Apply. We're going to a 2x8. This will be 7.25. And click Apply. And there you go. Now you have a family that flexes. So instead of calling this a 2x4, I'm going to call this 2x cut section. And then I'm going to load this into the project. Before I do that though, I'm going to create a new family, and this one's going to be a detail item line based. Now these can be really, really handy. So they already kind of have this set up to kind of help you with a line based. A few things this is handy for is for floor systems. If you have a wall type that you use a lot and you want to have a line based detail item that you can just draw over, it can save you a whole lot of time. I use these a lot at one of the jobs I had. So in order to start, I'm going to create a filled region. I'm going to do the rectangle, and we're just going to do, actually, instead of a filled region, I'm going to do a masking region, just to show where the 2x material would be. So if you're doing, so this is going to be a wall sitting on its side. So the width of this wall is going to be 5.5 inches because we're going to say it's 2x6 studs. I'm going to select OK. So this masking region will cover anything in the wall. But then say next to that we want plywood. So we're going to create a filled region, change the type to GIP. I don't have plywood in here yet, so I'm going to create it. Plywood. Change this. Change the fill pattern. Search on around until we find plywood. So as you noticed just a second ago, this plywood wasn't in here. I'm going to show you real quick a way how to get it from one project to another. So if you have a project that already has it in it, such as this one, you can create a quick masking region of plywood. Click OK, or filled region, I'm sorry. You can copy and then paste it directly into here. And when you do that, then the pattern will come into this file as well. If not, you can go and find the pattern online someplace, or if you know where it is on your computer, you can find it there. So I'm going to create a filled region of plywood. It's going to be here, and then I'm going to make sure, instead of locking those, I'm going to drag it the right side over to the reference plane, lock it, left side over to the reference plane, lock it, and then the thickness I'm going to change to 5/8 of an inch. There you go. Then you can select OK. Now I've got plywood in there. And then let's say you wanted rigid insulation on the outside of that. Rigid insulation. Lock these two sides. I'm going to have this be, say, 2 inches. Oops, and it went the wrong way. And grab the dimension to put it where I want it. Let's do that again, 2 inches. Select OK. Now let's say something else you wanted is if you wanted a stud at the bottom and at the top. You can, so I selected DC for detail component. There's none loaded right now. So I'm going to quickly come and import the one I just created. So I'm going to switch back to that screen. I say load into project. It's going to ask me which one. I'm going to say family 4 because I haven't resaved it. Okay, here we go. I'm going to rotate this. One there, one here. But I want the 2x6 option. So I'm going to select both of these. And look, there's the 2x6 section right there. And then to get these to line up, I'm going to use my command AL for align. Click the reference plane, click the side of that, side of the 2x6, I'm sorry. Do the same thing here. Lock these. Now on one side, you're probably going to want a double top plate. So I created two of those here. I clicked align and aligned those two together and locked those. And so now we have a basic wall system. But before we quit, we might as well put the gyp on the interior side. Again, lock those, filled region. And depending on who you're using, I'm going to do 5/8 inch gyp. Select OK, and then I'm going to change that pattern to gypsum. There we go. And now we have a line-based family. I'm going to save this. Say wall with rigid. Again, change this down to 1. Okay, then I'm going to load this into my house project that I've been working on. And then detail component, it wants to save it first. And look, now we've got wall with rigid, the one we just created. And if I select up here, bring this on down, I'm in the wrong spot, so I'm going to start down here at the bottom. I'm going to turn off the line weights to know where I'm supposed to be. There we go. Come up here to the top. Click right there. And there you have it. You've got a very quick way of drawing in a wall system over it to clean it up really, really good. Unfortunately, you can't put insulation into the family. It's not that I know of yet. So then you have to come in separately and put the insulation in yourself into the family. And that's how a wall-based system works, or a line-based detail item works. If there is a tool or skill in Revit that you would like to see demonstrated, please leave a comment below.